You know, one of the good things about the era that we live in is that if we're going to be in lockdown, at least it's in this era when we have a lot of streaming entertainment options, whether it's gaming or movies. We got Disney Plus. We've got HBO Max coming. We've got Hulu and we've got Amazon Prime. We got the Google Play Store, but also we have Netflix. And Netflix just released their new film starring Chris Hemsworth, produced by the Russo brothers and written by Joe Russo, called Extraction. Now, we talked about the trailer for this a couple weeks ago. Some people were really excited about the trailer. Some people thought, okay, it looks interesting. I think, Rob, it's safe to say that you were one of the more excited people about the trailer. I thought, okay, it looks interesting.
Not only
side of it.
Oh,
No,
sorry.
go ahead.
Well,
Please.
not only was I excited, a friend of mine was saying, this is better than Man on Fire, because he knows I love Man on Fire. Now, I haven't
Those
seen...
are big words.
I know, and I maybe he was responding to the action, because I've heard the action is beautifully staged, but even you had said it gets too pummeling. I was really looking forward to this. I still am looking forward to this, because, you know, I mean, when I go into action movies like this, I think about what I loved in the 80s, whether it was American Ninja or Commando or even things that maybe a step above like that. But I still have a great love for these kinds of action films. And whenever I see one like Six Underground, I want it to be great. Yeah. And I want this to be great, too. I love the people involved. Chris Hemsworth looks like a badass. I hear the action is great. So maybe there is a lot of enjoyment to be had here, but you know, I don't know. I hear what you're saying.
Well, listen, speaking of that, I'm going to say two seemingly contradictory things
Uh-oh.
when it comes to Extraction.
Uh-oh.
Number one, y'all should see it. Y'all should see it. I think you should watch it. Now, the second thing I need to say is going to sound like it's in contradiction to that, but you're going to see what I'm saying. This is a terrible movie. This is a terrible movie. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, fairly so, John, you just said we should go see it, but you're saying, you know, it's available on Netflix, but you're saying it's terrible. Well, here's the thing. Let me say this about Extraction. And let me tell you this too. If you have seen the trailer, you have seen the movie. Minus, and let me say this off top about this movie Extraction, the absolute top shelf action. The action in this movie is so well choreographed, so well set up, so well executed. It's visceral and violent, and it's got this kinetic movement to it. It is fantastic. And I'm not just sitting here trying to give lip service to this movie because I'm saying it's bad, so I should say some nice things about it. No, no, no. I am telling you, the action in this movie is absolutely top shelf. From everything from the hand-to-hand combat scenes, the gunfight scenes, there's this car chase scene that really isn't that great of a car chase scene, but the way that it's shot makes you feel like you're right in the action. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of the action in this movie is just top shelf thrilling. I would dare say John Wick level kind of action. And those are big words, especially coming from me, because you know how much I love John Wick. I would say that I would compare the action, while it's different style, the thrill factor of the action in Extraction, I would compare, I'm not necessarily saying it is definitely as good, but I would compare to the thrill levels that you get in the action in John Wick. Absolutely. The problem with this film, because you guys know I love the Russo brothers. I'm a big Chris Hemsworth fan. I also really dig that this movie takes place in like a couple locations, including India, which you never see that happen in movies. And they do, and I thought that added a really unique flavor to the film that you don't get in your, stereotypical generic kind of action film. Great action, like the setting. I like a lot of people involved. Here's the problem with Extraction. When the bullets aren't flying, this movie is dull. I mean, literally, the movie grinds to an absolute halt. And when they try to fabricate any kind of an emotional impact in the movie. It comes across as so poorly done that I literally caught myself on a couple of occasions in the movie, like kind of burying my hands in my face going, oh my God, did they really just do that? Like, it's really bad. Now, listen, you guys, like I said, you've seen the trailer, you've seen the movie. You know, the movie starts off with sad Chris Hemsworth. And the movie ends with sad Chris Hemsworth. The movie starts and oh, look, Chris Hemsworth, and he's sad. And you instantly know, I won't give anything away, but you can probably guess what it is. As soon as this movie starts and you meet Chris Hemsworth's character, I guessed within the first 2 seconds, oh, well, clearly this is what's going on with this character. And sure enough, it is. I won't say what it is, but you're probably figuring it out on your own. And then they try to set up like there's this big emotional bond between, you see in the trailer, Chris Hemsworth and the kid that he's there to extract. And it's like, it was so unearned. It's like they have a couple of quick little conversations in between these crazy gunfight scenes. And then all of a sudden they're connecting on this deep heart-to-heart basis. And in this one conversation, this kid who's like 13, 14 years old, whatever, he's like actually conducting a therapy session with the Chris Hemsworth character. Yes, and how did that make you feel? And I'm just like, oh my God. And the scene just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then David Harbour shows up, Rob. David Harbour shows up, who I like. And the moment he shows up and the way they brought him in, you're like, oh, and I won't tell you what it is. You'll find out for yourself, but you'll know in the first 3 seconds. As soon as David Harbour shows up, you go, oh, this is, I can tell you right now exactly what they're going to do with this. Here's what's going to happen with David Harbour. You just know immediately. I mean, there are certain things that happen to the Chris Hemsworth character that he starts to do something, you're like, okay, start timing it, because in about 30 seconds, this is going to happen. Watch. It's so telegraphable, and it's so emotionally artificial, and it's so dull when this insane top shelf level action isn't happening. So the reason I say those two contradictory things at first, I think this is a terrible movie, but you really should see it, is because if you go into, I would suggest that if you're going into Extraction with the attitude of, you know, it's a Netflix straight to streaming movie, what can we expect? Hopefully I'll just have some fun with it. I think you're in for a good time. Because if you're just looking to one of these movies for some really good, sharp action, stuff like that, doesn't matter if they drop the ball and just about everything else. If you're looking for that, I think you will have a good time. And even if you don't like this movie, like I don't like this movie, the action is so good, you've got to see it. I mean, you've got to see it. I mean, maybe that restaurant up the street is rat-infested cockroach hotel, but oh my God, their souffle is to die for. And that's kind of what Extraction is, you know? Extraction is this really bad restaurant, but oh my God, their main dish, the action, exceptional. So it's a tale of two movies, Rob. It's a tale of two movies to me. So anyway, that's what I thought. See, and the issue I take with that buddy of yours who said it's like Man on Fire. No, Man on Fire had so much more depth and such more interesting character development and such a more interesting protagonist. And by the way, none of this is Chris Hemsworth's fault. As a matter of fact, Chris Hemsworth really pulls off the action in a fantastic way. He didn't have anything to work with. And then they have this super lame ending. Like, because again, you telegraph it. About 5 minutes before the end of the movie, you're like, in about 5 minutes when this movie's ending, I bet this happens. And sure enough, that's what happens. I don't know. And by the way, one other thing, can I throw one other huge problem I have with this? So Chris Evans' character is a part, you see this in the trailer, he's a part of this elite off the books paramilitary team, right? That drives around in Mercedes SUVs and flies around in helicopters and has all the most expensive things. And Chris Hemsworth is like the main muscle. He's the main action guy. Like everything depends on Chris Hemsworth's character doing his thing, but he's broke. Like they try to set up this thing as he's living this thing. He's got a chicken running around his house. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And it's like, but this organization that he's the key player in is flying around in helicopters and it's like, yeah, that didn't make any sense. Anyway, there's just so much to this movie that's just so disappointing, especially considering the action is so damn good. But I don't know. But I'll be really curious, Rob, because I think you're going to deeply appreciate the action of this. But I'm going to be really curious to know your reaction to the film once you do watch it. And again, guys, do watch it. It's on Netflix. Easy. Just go pop it on, watch it. And at the worst is that you'll have some fun watching some great action. But I'll say this one last thing. And I mentioned this to Rob before we started the show. You know, sometimes they caution you, like, you put in too much action in a movie, you start to just get exhausted with it. By the time you get into the third act, and not just at the beginning of the third act, but once you get into the third act, like a good halfway through the third act, you're starting to realize, yeah, I'm exhausted with this. It's because it's just been like bullets, 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 action, 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 kill, kill, kill. And you start realizing I'm getting desensitized to it, and I'm losing a little bit of that thrill. So by the time you get to the last big battle of the movie, like all action films have, I was like, okay, I'm ready for the movie to be over because it's just been so much of this. But anyway, guys, I like all movies. It's subjective, and you should check it out because you may have a completely different experience with this movie than I did, and that's the wonderful thing about movies. So if you have seen it, guys, jump on down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts about it. Okay, guys.